Morning, everybody. This is an early, whoops, just almost stepped in a puddle. It's been terrible weather the past several days. It's not really too cold or anything like that, but it's just overcast and crappy. I mean, look at all this stuff over here now that's for rent. That deli over there, out of business. This rail line, the last time I was by here, well, actually maybe the very last time, it was already closed, but this was open pretty recently, this rail line diner. Retail space available all around here. I'm heading over, by the High Line and then a little south to visit this, Barry Diller, the Diddle Park, Little Park, whatever the hell it is. This bizarre park that wouldn't let me in last time. It's new. And they said before noon you can come in here, but for some reason afternoon, I don't know, you needed an appointment, you needed to be a special friend of Barry Diller, maybe you need to be in the Television Hall of Fame like he is. I got some questions for Barry Diller, I got some questions for Andrew Cuomo, I got some questions about these public-private partnerships, not just parks, but this is the, so why is it? Okay, so here's the other thing that we're doing today that I'm hopeful that people will find interesting, because there are several vexing problems that have faced me lately, and people will notice a substantial shift in the audio that's just occurred right now. I have a lot of different systems that I use depending on what I'm doing, where I'm going, who will join me, etc. And each of these things are subject to their own unique technical nuances and difficulties. And I so appreciate the people who sponsor the show and try to really help for me to achieve what it is that I'm trying to achieve. And that is to shine light on some of these questions that the so-called news doesn't want to talk about. Things like, what the hell is up with Barry Diller and some kind of special deal he's got going with Cuomo to make this dopey little park that I have a feeling probably benefits him financially, tax deductions or who the hell knows what. And I mean, is he contributing to Cuomo's election for something? Does he have anything to do with Cuomo getting an Emmy? I don't know, but the people who are helpful, sorry, let me just grab this other thing here. Well, let's conduct the test. This stream is a little bit about testing a complex technical failure. And I want to reiterate that if you are sitting at home watching videos that I make, sending me technical advice, unless I've asked you for it, do not do that. It's irritating. It's the opposite of helpful. So if you're trying to help me, you'll heed this message and not do that. Do not send me unsolicited technical advice, because you definitely do not know the solution. Unless I ask you for help, or you have some specific knowledge of the exact equipment that I'm using and what's wrong with it, like if you're an engineer for the company that makes it, that would help. But there is virtually no chance that somebody sitting in their home who doesn't know the full details will have some insight into this that I don't have. And frankly, it insults my intelligence, it wastes my time, and it uses up bandwidth. See, that guy's very curious about what I'm doing. Anybody who sees me walking down the street recognizes that I'm carrying an array of complex equipment. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this was not to reprimand those who think they're helping, or perhaps those who are deliberate social engineers trying to mess me up. I have a bit of an allegory for everybody, because what's happening is when I combine, something really is wrong here, and I don't know what it is. I put new batteries on this damn thing, and it just doesn't have sufficient voltage to perform. So this is a continuation of a test to try to solve a complex problem. And once I get to a place where everybody can hear me, we're going to explain this a little bit better. Whoa. So we see We have all kinds of things interacting here and lots of ways that they can go wrong. And anybody who sends me an email, oh, it's got to be a loose cable. Shut up. You're wrong. Do you really think that I am so stupid that I'm not checking the cables? I mean, these are things running down for weeks. And the reason why I'm talking about this today, not to reprimand viewers, but to help people understand that solving problems, complex problems, it's a difficult skill. And I'm not saying that people out there don't have it, and I'm not saying that people out there can't cultivate it, but let's talk about it a little bit today, because Crowdsource the Truth is not about crowdsource your opinion. It's not about crowdsource the maximum number of emails about nonsense I can get. And it's not about blowing me out with every piece of crap that you download from the internet. I get it that people want to help, but overwhelming me with email isn't helpful. If you have firsthand knowledge, if you have evidence, then I want to hear from you. I'll give you a great example of Crowdsource the Truth working amazingly well. Charles and I were walking down the street the other day, and we encountered Mark Crispin Miller, NYU professor, and a guy who's been really standing up to cancel culture. Now, when Charles and I are walking around in the street, I'm dealing not only with a ton of crazy people who like to accost me and potentially attack, I'm dealing not only with an array of complicated electronic equipment that how many people can even tell me what this is, what model it is, much less give me advice for how to make it work. I was in touch with the engineers who make this thing, and they implemented a feature that I asked for that appears to be not fully complete. There's some sort of problem with how this device detects the voltage of a battery, where I'm putting batteries on there that worked previously, and they're not working. They're draining in seconds. So something is wrong, and it's not the cable. I've tried 5 different cables. I've tried 2 different phones. The clicking comes through. That's a separate problem. What I'm getting at is deciphering and solving complicated problems. It's very rarely the most obvious thing. Sometimes it is, but then you solve it right away. If it was a faulty cable, which has been a problem in the past, you replace the cable and the thing works. When it takes weeks to solve a problem like this, when it takes a year and a half to figure out what's going on in a lab in Wuhan, China, you can't just jump to the most obvious possibility and insist that that's the answer and send me or anybody 50 emails about it. You're being exactly like the mainstream media. You're being exactly like your friends. Look at that bird holding a stick. Oh, he went away. There was a pigeon with a stick in its mouth that looked a little bit like a dove carrying a peaceful branch. And we missed it. The point of what I'm getting at is, it's helpful if I put out a symbol or something and say, does anybody know what this is? And you know what it is. And you tell me. It's not crowdsource the guess. It's not crowdsource a million emails from people who don't know but want to be involved. And I'm not trying to discourage people from being involved. I'm trying to encourage people to develop discernment. Do not believe the first thing that you hear, even if it appeals to your bias. A lot of people do that. And you know what? I've done it. It's something you got to be very careful of. This is exactly how social engineers trick you. They tell you something that appeals to your bias and is very likely true, and you say, this person's a truth teller. This person's on our side. I'm talking about Patrick Byrne. I'm talking about George Webb. I'm talking about Mary Fanning. All these people who come out with stories that seem appealing. And so Mike Lindell, a lot of people want to support Mike Lindell. That guy is just stupid. Mike, you're dumb. I do not believe that you have what it takes to make a multi-$100-million company. There's something going on there, and I want to know more about it. And when Charles goes and looks at these guys' foundations, what are all these billionaires doing with all these foundations? This is affecting us now. So this is a matter of public concern, and that's why I'm talking about it, because Joe Biden is now talking about, adding, 87,000 people to the IRS or something like that. And he makes most people feel okay by saying, oh, well, we're only going after rich people who make $400,000 a year. But wait a minute. Barry Diller, I think he's a billionaire. $400,000 is kind of nothing compared to him. Yeah, you should be sorry. Riding that bike super fast in the middle of this enclosed thing, you're going to hurt somebody. This is not a bike lane. I'm irritated today, as you can tell, because the country is falling apart. We've got people falling for nonsense from social engineers. My super awesome sound recorder has been giving me problems for weeks, and there's no solution in sight. It's absolutely going to have to be a software solution by the company that makes this. And that introduces a lot of problems for how I do the show. I have to keep trying to solve this problem. But you see, I was talking to Charles about this problem, and he's just totally uninterested in any of this technical stuff. So I told it to him not because I wanted to bore him with technical minutia, but because it was a little bit like the Karate Kid. Remember in the Karate Kid where he wants to learn karate? I'm talking about the Ralph Macchio one. I don't think I saw the Will Smith one, or what's his son's name? There was one that they made pretty recently that I saw part of on a plane, but I'm talking about the Ralph Macchio one where he goes and hangs out with Mr. Miyagi and he wants to learn karate, and the guy makes him wax the floor and wash his car, and he's got a very specific way that he wants to do it. And then when Ralph Macchio gets annoyed, Miyagi tries to smack him, and he blocks it with one of these reflexive moves that he's learned from washing the car or sanding the deck or whatever it was that he was doing. What is that? Interesting. Maybe just a briefcase. So what I'm getting at is, sometimes the disciplines learned from solving complex problems, and computers are complex systems. We've got an interaction here between an electronic device. There's a computer in here. There's a computer on my wrist. There's a computer on the end of this stick, and they're all interacting. They have Wi-Fi, they have USB connections, they have processors in them, they have software in them, and anything goes wrong in any one of these things, and there could be weird and unusual behavior. And figuring out what it is, if it's not, oh, the cable's loose, the battery's dead, turn it on. If it's not that, it's complicated to figure out, and there's a process. By the way, Interactive Corp right here, owners of Vimeo, the Daily Beast. Vimeo just went public. Chairman and I believe CEO Barry Diller. Look him up. Google Barry Diller. Google Barry Diller's sexy all-boy Thanksgiving. There was some piece about how the managers of IAC were very disappointed that they got no bonuses and no raises, even though Barry Diller is spending something like $1.6 million on personal travel. I mean, is that in the shareholders' best interests for the executives and the managers of the company to feel pissed off, and for the weirdo owner to be blowing tons of cash on personal travel? I mean, it doesn't sound like that's in the best interest of the company or the shareholders. And then he comes and he makes some kind of screwy deal with definitely top three. I was going to say the biggest idiot in New York. It's hard to know if that's de Blasio or Cuomo, but there was some kind of mention from Cuomo about Barry Diller having to do with this Diddle park. And, you know, Barry Diller, he's in the Television Hall of Fame. I don't know if people realize this, but he was a very famous television producer, produced a lot of shows. He's got this crew of guys that are known as Diller's Killers. And when you start looking into them and what those guys were all up to, getting into AOL, remember David Hawkins speaks a lot about how Alexander Haig was one of the first executives at AOL. And remember, for a time, AOL, there was a lot of people who didn't know the difference between AOL and the internet. They thought AOL basically was the internet. And certainly in those early days, it wasn't really easy to predict how that market was going to go and who was going to own it and run it and rule it. And we see now how the interconnection of everybody in a network that spans the globe allows people to consolidate power and do all kinds of stuff that maybe some of us don't like. So I think that Barry Diller is somebody that should be investigated quite thoroughly And what is the relationship between Barry Diller and the city of New York and the state of New York and the governor? You know, the governor got an Emmy. Oh man, now this is going to need to be submitted as evidence in NATAS v. MSD. This is the ongoing lawsuit from the Emmys. And people can look on the docket. That's a public lawsuit. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that a tax-exempt organization like the Emmys would have so much money to sue me. This has been going on for months now, and I can tell you that my bill has exceeded the amount of money that I am earning in this year. So I do want to thank all of the people that have gone to crowdsourcethetruth.com, where you can watch today's video, and usually I'm remembering to put the streaming videos there when they go out live. But people are also sponsoring the Counter Lawfare Fund, and this is helping me to fight the Emmys, who are basically trying to bully me with their money and lawyers, because the last thing that they want to do is get into a discussion about the merits of their claims. They're virtually guaranteed to lose on the merits, so they just want to waste a lot of time raising all kinds of spurious issues. People can see this in the public filings. I'm not revealing any inside baseball, but that's just one of the lawsuits that's going on, you know. The other lawsuit, Swigert v. Goodman, that's been going on for years, and I think people will recognize the last name Swigert. This will now, for some reason, the plaintiff in Swigert v. Goodman thinks that the mere mention of his name grants him a cause of action to go and file something in the lawsuit. But the fact is, that's a public lawsuit, and I've been talking a lot about how there are people out there who like to use the civil justice system as a weapon to try to stop me from bringing this kind of information to people. They've been trying to shut down Crowdsource the Truth in any way that they can. George's brother, David Swigert, the plaintiff in Swigert v. Goodman, has publicly stated that he wants me off the internet. He plans to sue me for the rest of his life. He's said this. I mean, isn't that anticipating? I mean, certainly if I just did nothing in 3 years or whatever, there's statutes of limitations on these things. How could he know that he's going to sue me for the rest of his life, unless that's a plan that he's executing? But anyway, the point of the matter is, these are social engineering tactics, and we see it happening all over the place. People suing people to stop them from doing things. Now, this is the Diddle Island here. Part of the other reason why I wanted to come here is that I've been speaking with Manny Grossman. Manny is the Crowdsource the Truth viewer who has now become a crowdsource investigator of his own, doing his own crowdsourced investigation into the Son of Sam murders. And we were talking about Untermeyer Park, which is another one of these kind of parks created by a rich guy. And we're trying to figure out exactly what the story is here, you know? I mean, this looks nice. Seems like it should be fun. They did allow me in, so it's public during a certain portion of the day. And Charles and I were down by that, what was that called? Elizabeth something or other Park the other day, where they had those very bizarre statues of human-animal hybrids. There's a lot of unanswered questions about some of these parks, and I would like to know in explicit detail why somebody who appears to be a selfish, greedy son of a bitch, who doesn't even pay the people who work for his company a bonus around Christmas time, or give them a raise when the company is doing so well that Vimeo goes public. That just doesn't seem like the best way to run a company. You want to get your best people and you want to keep them happy. I have never been a billionaire, and I always gave the guys working for me bonuses and tried to give them raises, but my company wasn't going public and making billions. And I wasn't opening parks. I guarantee this park was not created to benefit the public if there's not a commensurate or even greater benefit to Barry Diller. Now, I believe there's a concert venue in here, and they have that in Central Park as well. But then we start getting into this whole question of, you know, if you are a a rock star or some, musical act or something, and you want to have a concert here, I guess you pay this place and then people pay, or maybe it's free. I don't know. How does it work? Where does the money go? Who gets it? Barry Diller was somehow involved in the development of the High Line, and we saw how that thing got totally controlled when they decided that you needed to wear a mask to go in there even though it's outside. I mean, this is nice. We've got like an amphitheater here. It's not often that we get a new park in New York, and I don't mean to poo-poo something that seems really nice, but at the same time, I don't want to just fall for, whoa, look at that. Somewhat hypnotic, no? Huh, I wonder if the wind turns that thing. So here's what I'm getting at. Isn't it the way, don't they tell you don't take candy from strangers? And isn't this park a giant chunk of adult candy? Some weirdo, greedy billionaire who doesn't seem to have his charitable organizations legally organized like all the others that we've been looking at. There seems to be this pattern. And it's interesting that the first one that I started questioning was Robert David Steele's Earth Intelligence Network. He attempted to sue me for defamation when I told people that he wasn't properly registered with the New York State Attorney General, something the New York State Attorney General herself reiterated when she sent that letter to Black Lives Matter saying no charity may solicit in New York State without first being registered with the New York State Attorney General. So this is all I was pointing out to Crowdsourced the Truth viewers, that if you had made a financial contribution to that charity which was not properly registered with the State Attorney General, that you should speak to your lawyer or your accountant and that you might get jammed up. What the hell is this? Bizarre. But it is a beautiful amphitheater. I mean, candy is delicious. Maybe there's nothing going on in that van. There's candy in there.
Exactly. What?
So this is Diddle Park. See, the other thing that I'm looking for is, because they control access to this park, one thing that was very strange in Untermeyer Park, which Manny tells me also sometimes has access control on it, there are these weird altars in Untermeyer Park, which, Manny, his research is telling us that they were killing people on those things, doing satanic or occult ritual sacrifices. And I'm not saying that's happening here. There's no evidence whatsoever that it is. I'm just asking questions about these public-private partnerships. It looks like we got another one being built over there. So what kind of business opportunities exist here, and who is taking advantage of them? What other deals are made? We got a lot of premium real estate right over there, and I think a lot of it has been developed by Barry Diller. We got this Diller von Furstenberg Foundation, which is very questionable, doing a lot of the same things that the Clinton Foundation is doing, that CPAC and the American Conservative Union are doing. We're not just talking about the Clinton Foundation and friends of the Clinton Foundation. This seems to be a scheme that's being utilized across a wide array. Wow, I'm surprised they have that there. So someone's going to crack their skull on that and sue somebody. Who do they sue? Not the city of New York, not IAC. There's some, foundation that runs this thing. And we spoke to some of those people the other day. Like, this guy's not wearing a New York City Parks Department shirt. He's security for Little Island. So he works for a private company, I guess. And he's busily on the phone providing security. Now, people out there who know about some of this stuff I'm asking about, is there some significance to islands? Remember, there was another old weirdo who had a private island that had all kinds of temples and weird Roman symbols on there and everything. Is there something about being on the water? What's over there?
this time and was like, oh, like bike insurance. Yeah. That's
Like, definitely do it because the first time she did it. Yeah, and it's like so messed up because like.
By all accounts, this seems to be a totally innocuous municipal park. And I'm not making any allegation that it's anything other than that. I'm just very interested to learn more about how these public-private partnerships work, because it seems to me that they benefit the private more than the public, and that they take advantage of certain things. And as we, in the public, if any of our money is being used for this, like, why is Barry Diller getting any advantage from any money that I have or you have? That doesn't seem right. If he's making billions, and if people who work for him are disgruntled because he's not paying them what they deserve while he's simultaneously wasting money on personal travel, I mean, look up that Barry Diller's sexy all-boy Thanksgiving article. I mean, the guy's free to do whatever he wants. I don't mind, as long as the people who are participating are adults and doing it voluntarily. But what's up with pretending to be married if there's just something dishonest about that? I'm totally on board with somebody who wants to be gay and doesn't hide that. I mean, not that anybody's sexuality is particularly anybody else's business, but I'm curious about these guys who their behavior seems to indicate that they're gay, but they're married to women and their public image is that they aren't. Like, why? Are you not proud of yourself? Because that opens the door to discussing a whole other array of issues and questions. And I just have a lot of questions about Barry Diller. People will also recall that Vimeo canceled the Crowdsourced the Truth Vimeo channel after we exposed that dude in the Falcon pajamas as being a total fraud. Remember, that guy has not brought forward any information that's been useful at all. Charlie Strange, the father of Michael Strange, he's a Gold Star father. Michael was killed in Extortion 17. He was on The Backstory with Lee Stranahan and John Kiriakou, I think, yesterday. And, just a little bit slow leaving the park here. Where was I going with Charlie Strange? He's a guy who wants answers. He wants to know what happened to his son. And we aren't hearing about that. We got a real jam up here. People having a conversation on the stairs. Not the way we should do it. Listen, if you come to New York, the general rule is move quickly or get the hell out of the way. That's it. Anyway, I forget where I was going with that bit about Charlie Strange. It's hard to speak extemporaneously and keep all the thoughts straight, but this is Diddle Island. I would really like to know more about this. Barry Diller does not seem like a generous guy, so I don't believe that this is done strictly for the benefit of the people of Manhattan. What does that look like? This is just a weird place. But they are transforming the west side of Manhattan. Well, I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe you put this here, it increases the value of all this real estate that they already own. They buy up this stuff when the west side is derelict, and then they get involved in all these projects that, oh, here's a little, park, give us a big tax deduction, or maybe decline to investigate our existing huge money laundering tax deduction scheme, alleged tax deducting money laundering scheme. They're currying favor for sure. I mean, it's nice that they're providing jobs, but I think they've got 3 people working here. So you work for the Little Island Company? Have you met Barry Diller?
Yes, I have.
And is he nice to you?
Yes, he is.
Have you seen this article about his sexy all-boy Thanksgiving?
His sexy old boy Thanksgiving? That can't be true. He has a wife.
That's what I'm saying. How could it be true?
That's
But the
me.
photos don't lie.
There's photos.
Got to Google Barry Diller's Sexy All Boy Thanksgiving. Also, you know, this is supposed to be,
Talk on that.
yeah, I don't want to get you in
That's
trouble.
his life.
Well, right, but you're right. He's married. That would make him lying.
Well, maybe she's okay with it.
But he's lying to the public, isn't he?
That's his life.
I like your position on this. Have a nice day. That was a smart lady right there. I'm not trying to get her in trouble, but we see how this works. Even people working for him don't know what's going on. And I mean, working a security job is not the same as being an executive at IAC. Oh yeah, we also got to keep in mind IAC owns Tinder. A lot of weird stuff goes on with Tinder. That's an interesting company, the Interactive Corporation. Chelsea Clinton's on the board. Let me go into this part of the city so we're not walking up the West Side Highway again. I'm heading back to the apartment. We're getting ready to do David Hawkins' Discovery CSI. That's a sponsor exclusive show that people can see on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. If you become a sponsor, you get access to a whole other array of content. And you know, the other thing that happened is we had a great show yesterday with on Larry Klayman's Citizens Grand Jury, and it got pulled. Not surprising by YouTube. We had testimony from Dr. Judy Mikovits, from her co-author Kent Heckenlively, and also from John Cullen. I mean, we went into some topics that were, I mean, we've been talking about them on Crowdsourced the Truth, and Dr. Mikovits has been talking about them for a year, but you know, she's been canceled all over the internet. That video has now been pulled from YouTube. Got to go to rumble.com and subscribe to CS The Truth. Then you can watch the live streams there. You can watch this live stream right now, I think. Let me check, make sure that it's live. Hopefully it is. And we're seeing how the mainstream news, the mainstream in general, and now big tech is absolutely part of that. They can shut these narratives down and just basically tell you whatever they want. They create a consensus by getting everybody to believe the nonsense that they put out, while simultaneously shutting down the most prominent voices in independent media who are bringing you facts that are different than the facts they're bringing you on the news. Now, is this the Tesla dealership? That looks like maybe a Tesla under that. Just trying to get to Rumble here. So if you just go to rumble.com and type in CS The Truth, it should be live. Let's see if it is. There it is. Barry Diddle Island. So get onto Rumble and check that out. BitChute on June 1st has a new policy. Now BitChute is removing videos. Put a lot of evidence that David Swigert had published on his own YouTube channel and then deleted. Evidence of him saying things and taunting me and I think threatening me. I was threatened by these bizarre statements, and he puts them out and he deletes them. So I was saving them because I want to present them as exhibits and ultimately evidence in these lawsuits. And I put them up on BitChute, and after I presented them as exhibits, he wrote to BitChute all kinds of stuff to the BitChute legal department, got them to remove these videos and ultimately remove the entire BitChute channel. Not the Crowdsourced the Truth BitChute channel, that's still there. It's not getting new videos because the Jason Goodman YouTube channel that was feeding it is no longer on YouTube. So there's all kinds of issues with keeping this information coming to everybody. I really do appreciate all of the viewers who have become sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. That is absolutely the best way to help me sustain this effort and keep amazing guests like Dr. Judy Mikovits, like Kent Heckenlively, Larry Klayman, John Cullen, Charles Ortel, David Hawkins, everybody that I have on the show, Lee Stranahan, Manny Grossman, everybody. I don't mean to leave anybody out. There's just far too many people for me to remember. Looks like we got a movie being made down here. Oh, it's a Tesla commercial or something. TV show? At the Tesla place? No. Well, we got production back in New York, which is interesting. This guy looks like somebody's going to tell me to go away. Let's see what these... Looks like the broadcast might have cut out there for a second. Did people see this Newsweek article a week or two ago? Let's see if we're back here. Lots of different things that caused the live stream to fail. I think it's back. So did people see this Newsweek article maybe 2 weeks ago talking about the now look at that. P.F. Collier and Son. That's another one of these, we got a feather on one side and is it a pen on the other? 2 columns. And then Doyle and Doyle with the compass rose kind of thing. Anyway, this Newsweek article, which by the way, Newsweek used to be owned by IAC, recently sold to I think some French something or other. A lot of weird stuff surrounding Newsweek, IAC, the Daily Beast. I allege these are all social engineering platforms that they're launching stupid stories through, limited hangouts, giving you some information to cause you to believe them, and then take you in some other direction away from the real damning information. That's what I think is going on with throwing Fauci under the bus. Doesn't make sense that they would do that. But this Newsweek article was talking about the largest clandestine force undercover agency known anywhere, not previously known. But so suddenly Newsweek is telling you about that? I don't really believe much of anything in Newsweek, and I don't believe that they would tell you that if it wasn't a misdirection attempt to get you to believe something else. So maybe part of it is true, because I do think that there is a remarkably large team of undercover operatives who, work online under false names and are doing all kinds of things, potentially including suing me, to try to stop anyone who makes any headway in terms of breaking through these false narratives, parallel narratives, as David Hawkins frequently talks about. Parallel narratives. So if you start to break through, if your YouTube channel gets 100,000 viewers or 1 million viewers or whatever the number is, or if your videos are revealing something, or your blog, your Twitter account, whatever it is, they just get you out of there. Take you down, take you off. This is why it's important for people to become sponsors, because whatever it is that they do, I'm trying to counteract. And it's a very dynamic situation, because when I make some kind of change, we got Vimeo going instead of YouTube. I did not know at the time that Diddle Island proprietor and chairman and CEO of IAC controlled Vimeo. I didn't even know who Barry Diller was at that time. But we got on Vimeo, where we thought we had some freedom, because it was an opt-in. People were subscribing to hear this information, and they didn't like it. Vimeo canceled the account. So if you become a sponsor, you're going to be getting content directly from a Crowdsourced the Truth server on Subscribestar, and hopefully we're just a couple days or weeks away from having that same server accessible to the sponsors on Patreon. Patreon has opened a tech support ticket to resolve the problem. That was another extremely complex problem to figure out, but luckily we got the CTO of Patreon involved, and he was able, based on the information that I shared with him, to figure it out. It's another one of these things that no matter how many suggestions came from the audience who were not familiar with the details, we would have never gotten there. So again, I don't want to discourage people from helping. Oh yeah, wait, I think I forgot to finish the story about a great use of Crowdsourced the Truth. So we were walking down the street the other day on Sunday with Charles, and Charles and I caught the attention of Mark Crispin Miller, who looked at us with surprise because we were talking about a topic that he agreed with, but the look on his face initially caused me to believe that he was unhappy with what we were saying. And so we just had a brief exchange there on the street, and then a very thoughtful Crowdsourced the Truth viewer sent me a kind email saying, "Oh my God, that was Mark Crispin Miller. Here are all his details." And I knew who he was, but I didn't recognize him immediately there on the street. And even actually when I was looking at the video and comparing it to pictures of him on his website, I think he had either shaved a beard or grown a beard or whatever. So it took me a second to be absolutely sure that it was him, but it was. And so I emailed him, and I'm in communication with him, and it looks like there will be an interview with him. That was a fantastic use of Crowdsourced the Truth, because whatever it is that I know and don't know, I certainly don't know everything, and I can't necessarily recognize somebody like that. My primary thought when I'm on the street, particularly with Charles, is making sure that the production keeps going, that the sound keeps going, that the picture keeps going, that we remain live and don't get attacked. And immediately identifying people who I don't necessarily know, it might be a challenge. So that was super helpful and has led to, who knows what that will lead to. Maybe Mark Crispin Miller will become an important contributor of information to Crowdsource the Truth. Maybe somebody will see him in a video on Crowdsource the Truth that will lead to some opportunity or benefit to him. This is a stormtrooper car. Kind of a nice graphic. But that's the point of Crowdsource the Truth. Not to throw a million, plucked out of the air guesses at me, but to share important and useful information to help move the story forward, to help move our collective understanding forward, those kind of things. So, and conversely, there was someone, this was really disgraceful. This was a Subscribestar sponsor, and I would have terminated this person's sponsorship, but I'm not going to go into the details why I didn't do that. They said something like, "Shame on you. How did you not recognize Mark Crispin Miller?" It's like, don't, unless you want to upset me, don't put in upsetting comments. I have so many people coming at me with crap. It's just impossible for me to recognize every person. I've walked by people who I went to high school with in New York City and didn't notice them, and then they stopped me. So it's not my job to necessarily notice everybody. And don't tell me something like "shame on you." If you don't like what I say or do, just cancel your subscription. And if you don't have something nice or helpful to say, keep that to yourself. It's not crowdsource your opinion. It's not crowdsource your crappy comments. If you know something for a fact that I or one of the guests don't know, contributing that bit of information can be extremely helpful and can help everybody. Here, wait, this is Google. And they want you to grow with Google. I don't think that's true at all. Not if you're me. They want to crush your YouTube channel. Scroogle. That's their deal. Yeah, so we're just a little over an hour away from Reverse CSI with David Hawkins. I think a lot of people saw that story. It was kind of breaking last Friday when we were live with David. 215 indigenous children found in a mass grave at a residential school in Canada. We did a story maybe 2 years ago with David Hawkins about these Canadian residential schools and how there's a long history of extremely troubling things happening at these schools and where these indigenous children come from, And then when I think about research that Manny Grossman is doing in his Son of Sam investigation, and he's happened upon this thing called Catholics for Latin America, which was somehow bringing children from South America. There was also somebody who came up, was it Peter Daszak? There was somebody whose project was about going to Haiti and cataloging people to help them get jobs, which was interesting to me because Is that what they need to do to get jobs? And did they bring any jobs to Haiti, or were they just figuring out who has parents that are going to care if they go missing and who doesn't? I'm not saying that's what they were doing. I'm asking, is that what they were doing? So there's a lot of suspicious people up to a lot of suspicious things that don't make sense. The other thing I wanted to mention about Swigert v. Goodman and Natas v. MSD, these are coincidental lawsuits. They're happening at the same time, and there's things happening in each of them that someone who's closely following the docket could potentially, I should say someone who's a participant in one of these lawsuits, they could do certain things on certain days to attempt to put pressure on deadlines in one lawsuit or the other. And I believe that's happening, despite being told, motions are closed and pleading is closed and you can't put in these. I mean, look, the law is a very squishy thing. There's lots of circumstances that change that allow things to happen. And I don't want to get into too many details because, again, Mr. Swigert is very, very keen to take anything that I say and put it into the lawsuit and attempt to form some cause of action and then allege that I'm trying to increase the proceedings. This is absolutely not true. Oh, hey, look, a new dog store. A lot of people don't like these dog stores, but that's pretty cute dogs. That guy's got a dog mask. Very cute. I think the problem is they want to rescue dogs, not buy them from places like that, but I'm not going to get into that discussion right now. Wait a minute. See, I'm very fascinated by symbols like this. That is the symbol that appears on 425 Carroll Street, which we talk about pretty frequently on David Hawkins' Reverse CSI. People need to remember that David George Swigert wrote a book called like the Certified Ethical Hacker Operation Field Guide or something like that, telling you how to be an ethical hacker. Now again, ethics, that's a subjective field. What is ethical in one culture may be unethical in another. If you work for the US Navy or the US Air Force and you're hacking China, perhaps that's ethical. If you're in China, you might disagree. So I'm not sure exactly what this term ethical hacker means, but we know that hackers work by banging on a system until they find a weakness and they can exploit, and then they go in there. And look, the fact is, you apply a sufficient amount of pressure to anything, it's going to crack. And what we are seeing here, whether intended by the progenitors of these lawsuits or not, is an ongoing, just almost unbelievable level of pressure that's being applied to me, and their hope is that I'm going to crack. But I think they're going to crack first. And I need your help in order to sustain this onslaught. So please become a sponsor. Subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You're going to get a great value for your sponsorship dollar in the form of exclusive content, access to content that YouTube wants to take down. And by the way, YouTube and now apparently BitChute, they just change their policy at any time and take this stuff down if some dope makes enough noise. You threaten BitChute, obviously they don't want to be shut down. Again, a hacker could find out, well, what is BitChute trying to do? Maybe they're trying to get funding, maybe they're trying to get on some particular network that they're not on right now or something. And this is the way a hacker would operate. Find a weak point and exploit it. That's why all of my monetization platforms are constantly under attack. My big YouTube channel is constantly under attack. Frankly, every YouTube channel I create is constantly under attack. I hope that people will go to Crowdsource the Truth 3, Crowdsource the Truth Forever. I got to tell you something. I love anything to do with s'mores, and hello to this little dog. Is this a weed store? Homeopathy? Something with the lab. I think this dog likes me. A lot of stuff out of business over here. Yeah, so the reason I'm talking about this lawsuit so much right now compared to what I've done previously is because we are getting closer to the end. Swigert v. Goodman, check the docket. A summary judgment motion has just been entered. Mr. Swigert has responded with a motion to stay the proceedings until September. Everything he's doing is a strategic play to drag this out, to make it take longer, to accuse me of nonsense, to put negative information about me out there into the world of the internet, to try to dissuade people from becoming sponsors, to try to shut down this effort, to try to defeat my will, and of course to try to get money from me from the lawsuit. But he can't succeed. He cannot be allowed to succeed. He cannot be allowed to abuse the civil justice system. And, you know, look, when the lawsuit is done, I'm going to go into great detail as to what's going on and how this happened and why it shouldn't be allowed to happen, and maybe we can explore potential ways to make it stop. You know, let me go back to Steele v. Goodman. That was the first frivolous, vexatious lawsuit brought against me. I think I've said it on air before. Robert David Steele's attorney, who was also Devin Nunes' attorney, the guy's been sanctioned for $21,000 that he's got to pay CNN for bringing a frivolous lawsuit, Nunes versus Cable News. That was in Maryland, I think. And there appears to be a coalition of lawyers who have defended a bunch of different people who have been sued by that moron, who are, I mean, they're lawyers. They're doing things that are, you know, writing to judges and the Bar Association. I don't understand how Stephen Biss remains an embarred attorney. He is so unethical and irresponsible and so regularly engaged in what's it called, barratry and something else, but that's drumming up nonsense lawsuits to just make money. And I've been saying that for 4 years. Oh, low battery, right, because it's no longer plugged into the sound recorder. I got to get on the phone with Sound Devices and give them all the details about what's going on. I thought the problem had to do with this device's ability to automatically detect the voltage of the battery that it's using and I guess somehow adjust what it's doing. And it seems that the new software update that they've done that powers the phone has somehow disrupted its ability to detect the voltage. I think that's what the problem is. I don't know because I'm not an engineer, but I've had a lot of hands-on experience as an applications expert working with this stuff. So now when I communicate with an engineer, that'll be some useful information for them. I'm kind of crowdsourcing the technical support troubleshoot for them. This was a gourmet donut shop that's out of business now. Oh no, it wasn't. That's down the street. This was the lobster restaurant that's out of business now. This is one of the oldest restaurants in New York City. I don't know if it's out of business or just getting renovated or what. Do you know if they're renovating the restaurant or is it out of business?
They're
Renovating everything. Okay. All right, well, maybe the donut place will come back. Here's the donut place. I don't really like this donut place, but not that I don't like it, I never go there. I'm not really a big donut eater, but it could be good. Yeah, so there's going to be more information coming out about these lawsuits because I think it's important for people to understand how this works and what's going on. Because these lawsuits, they're used in many cases by people who have money. I'm talking about Dershowitz, I'm talking about the Emmys, all these people who bring lawsuits. What they want to do is they want to get a judgment in court so that becomes the public record. Oh no, okay, so what is this? All these places are going out of business. I think this was a deli. Deli's going out of business. Very unusual. But I want people to understand what's going on so that they can better, you know, make better decisions about the world around them by being better informed. And this is also part of what Larry is trying to achieve with his Continental Congress that's happening July 5th and 6th in Philadelphia. I hope that people go to freedomwatchusa.org and get the details on that and join us in Philly in July. But we have all these loopholes in the courts that allow people who know how to utilize them to abuse it and use them against honest people and just get them over a barrel, where justice and facts and truth don't matter if these people can strong arm you into a position where you can just no longer operate, either financially or practically, by shutting down all the channels, by occupying all my time with lawsuits, by stealing all my resources. This is the most reprehensible thing about it. If any of these scumbags came up to me on the street with a gun and said, "Give me your money," I could defend myself with deadly force. But the way they like to steal money, you can't do that. They are trying to kill me. They're trying to take my livelihood, my home, my business. And then what? I become homeless and die? Why can't I defend my life as I would if somebody accosted me on the street? Why? And I'm not saying that you should be allowed to do that. I'm just saying we got a lot of problems in our civil justice system, in our criminal justice system. Why isn't Anthony Fauci under arrest today? Is this not the biggest medical crime against the people of the United States of America? Is this not the biggest medical crime in the world since the Nazi doctor experiments of World War II? That this guy is funding crazy research around the world and lying to the public about it while people die, and he's sending, closing businesses, ruining everything around us. There's an increase in the tempo, and it's a new kind of a thing. But these idiots with their lawsuits are not going to stop me from what I'm doing, and with your help, they're going to be caused to know that. Become a sponsor on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I'll see everybody in just a little bit with David Hawkins.